the same page. And she was kind enough to send this to me, so I didn't have to create my own, and I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So we're going to go through this, and then we're going to get into small groups. And I have had a request for a men's group. So we are going to have one group of just men, and then we will split, and then those will be any surgery that you've had. The guys will all be in one, and then we'll split the others into the usual gastric bypass and sleeves. So I'm going to run through this. If you have questions, just raise your hand and we'll answer them. Some interesting facts about bones, just to start out with. Do you know how many bones there are in the body? Now that's cheating! I forgot you guys all have that sitting on your I should have done this part before I passed out the handouts, shouldn't I? You're right, 206, Kurt. And okay, the smallest bone is the little bone in your ear, the stapes, which is in the middle part of the ear. The most common broken bone, and I have had this, is your arm. In fact, I have a plate all the way up in my arm with 8 screws in it. So it is my most frequently broken bone. When do bones stop growing? They stop growing at puberty. And we look at bones when we are looking at adolescents. There are adolescents that need bariatric surgery too, and we have to see that their bone growth has been completed before we will consider doing surgery on them. So that is one of those things that we watch very carefully. What affects the density and the strength of your bones? Actually, it changes constantly over your life. So that's why we ask you that you get bone density studies every so often. You want to keep an eye on your bone health all the time. What makes them weak? A lack of calcium and vitamin D are the 2 biggest reasons for weak bones. The purpose of bones, they have 2 functions. One is obviously to provide form for you, to help you with mobility, support, and protection for the body. Like your ribs, they're protecting all of your lungs and your heart. And they are very adaptable, and they can provide adequate strength and mobility so they don't break. The other thing that your bones do are they are a reservoir for your essential minerals, for calcium and phosphorus, and for sodium, other minerals, and protein collagen, which is what binds everything together. Calcium and phosphorus have to be in a perfect ratio, or what your body's going to do is it's going to go to that storehouse when it needs it, and it's going to pull that out of your body. So your parathyroid glands are what, they have a hormone that they will put out if they don't see that your calcium and phosphorus are in the ratio that they need to be. And it puts out this hormone and it starts dissolving bone. And that's how you end up with osteopenia and osteoporosis. And you won't know it. You won't be aware that this is happening unless you have lab work done, and even then it's not always right because it's going by the amount of calcium in your bloodstream. So it's critical. Calcium is also really critical for the function of all body organs, and particularly for muscles. And remember that your heart is a muscle, so you want to make sure that you've got enough calcium. When I used to be on a code blue team for about 10 years, and one of the first drugs that we would give when we had a code blue was calcium in order to get that heart pumping again. So it is really important that those stay in the correct ratio. And I think it's in one of these. Oh, okay. When we take in enough calcium, then it's getting stored in your bones. And when it needs more, then it's going to withdraw it to serve whatever vital function it needs to. But too many withdrawals, like I said, from the level not being high enough, it's going to lead to bone disorders and it's going to lead to fractures. Before surgery, the studies that we've done on people show that almost everybody is deficient in vitamin D, and vitamin D is essential to the absorption of calcium. The latest guidelines from the ASMBS say that you need between 3,000 and 6,000 units of vitamin D. It keeps going up every time I hear about it. And if you are extremely deficient in vitamin D, they will sometimes put you on as much as 25 to 50,000 units a week to get that back up there. So that is a very important vitamin to keep track of, and that's one of the ones that we're always checking for when you get your lab work at your follow-ups. One of the problems is that calcium deficiencies, like I said, initially they have no physical effect. So you aren't aware that this is happening. But post-op patients about a year out report feeling really good, and so they stop taking their supplements. And so within a couple of years, they have now really decreased the density of their bones and made their bones a lot more vulnerable to being fractured. Osteopenia, by the way, is just the precursor to osteoporosis. If you have osteopenia, there is some weakening there, and you need to do something to improve your bone health. Now, osteoporosis. These are not bariatric patients. This is how prevalent osteoporosis is just in society. 16% of women over the age of 50 have osteoporosis. That's a pretty huge amount of people. And real men do get osteoporosis. Also, they say that about 2 million American men have osteoporosis and about 12 million have osteopenia. And like I said, this is a bariatric patients. So this is what the difference looks like. This is what a normal bone density would look like. This is what your bone begins to look like with osteoporosis. And as you can see, it wouldn't take a whole lot to break that bone. So when you get to developing osteoporosis, then you're going to start seeing fractures. And there was a study done and showed that people after bariatric surgery, when they were more than that year out, began having more fractures. So it is something that you do need to keep in mind as you go forward. You've got to keep taking that calcium. Studies show that most patients are 40 to 80% deficient in vitamin D prior to surgery. And then as you lose weight, it's difficult to keep that calcium and phosphorus balance, and your bones can't keep up. So the other thing that affects that is the angle of your joints are going to change as weight is lost, and this increases the wear and tear on your bones. So you've got a decrease in the intake of vital nutrients because you can't eat as much as you used to, and you're absorbing fewer vitamins, and there are a lot of hormonal changes that are going on. So all of that together can weaken your joints and weaken your bones. This is the research I was talking about. It's shown that by 6 years post-op, bariatric surgery patients had double the fracture risk of the general population. They found 138 fractures in 82 patients. That's almost 2 per patient. That's a pretty extreme amount of fractures. And the older you get, the more dangerous fractures become. Over the age of 65, a fracture of the hip can result in a patient dying within the year. It's like 60% of those patients die within a year over the age of 65. Now that doesn't seem very old to me. I'm 63. I've broken a lot of bones in my life, but that is a lot of fractures. And so what I want to really drive home tonight is you can't stop that calcium. You really, really need to make sure that you continue to get that so that you keep your bones strong. And you want to eat the things that have the vitamin D and the calcium in them. These are the nutrients that are important for your bone health: calcium, which is the major structural element that's in your bones in your teeth have more calcium than anywhere. And then it's also, as I said, critical to muscle contraction, nerve impulses, hormone secretion, proper functioning of movement, heart, and brain. Vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of calcium in the small intestine. And without enough, your bones are going to become thin and they're going to become brittle, and you simply won't be storing that calcium that you do take in. And then protein, I know we tell you you need to have a good 60 to 70 grams of protein a day, and part of that is because it goes to the protein collagen that holds everything together. So you need to have all of these three things on a daily basis. You need to make sure that you're taking in enough. Calcium, I think everybody will need to go back to that. All your dairy products, obviously, and your dark green vegetables are where most of your calcium is. So as long as you're taking in plenty of dairy and you're getting some green vegetables, especially your dark green vegetables, that's giving you calcium also. But you cannot eat enough calcium in a day after bariatric surgery to get you up to the 1,500 milligrams of calcium that we want you to have. So you've got to take supplements in addition to eating those foods. After surgery, your dietary intake does decrease, and we've already talked about vitamin D. You also have low stomach acid. So that's caused by a decrease in the amount of acid blockers that you have in your stomach after surgery, and it needs stomach acid to be absorbed. So some people will notice that some things bother them because they don't have enough stomach acid to digest correctly, and that is one of the results of having the bariatric surgery. So you do need to make sure that you get the right kind of calcium, because calcium carbonate is much more difficult to digest and to absorb than calcium citrate. There's a lot of different types of calcium citrate on the market. We carry the Bariatric Advantage Chews over here. I know those are expensive. You don't have to buy those. You can go you could go to Bed Bath & Beyond. They now have like a pharmacy in there. They have all the drugstore kind of products, and they sell a lot of different kinds of Citracal, and Citracal is calcium citrate. So you can use that. There's also, if you go online, to a lot of different bariatric surgery vitamin sites. In fact, if you just Google bariatric vitamins, you will get a whole host of different ones, and they're all calcium citrate because they all know that that's what it needs to be. And they come in all different shapes, sizes. Some are in crystals, some are in powder form, and any of those is fine as long as it's the calcium citrate so that you get the absorption that you need. According to the American Society of Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery, if you have a band, you need 1,500 milligrams a day. If you have the bypass, you need 15 to 2,000 milligrams a day. And the sleeve, you need 12 to 1,500 milligrams a day. And that's over and above what you're eating. So don't think that just because you're taking in a lot of dairy that it's covering your calcium needs. It is not. Vitamin D, it is in dairy products also. It's also usually in a lot of different cereals. You'll see on the box they're fortified with vitamin D. You'll see that on a lot of them. And it's also in fish, particularly salmon is a very good source of vitamin D. You can also get vitamin D from the sun. Obviously, your body makes it when you're out in the sun for a period of time. You need to be in the sun for at least 20 minutes, 3 times a week in order to make enough vitamin C. And that means without a lot of clothing covering your skin up, and that means without sunscreen, because everybody slathers up with sunscreen, and that's one of the reasons now so many people are deficient in vitamin D. So you want to make sure that you're not completely covered, that you spend at least 20 minutes, you don't use sunscreen, and your skin color is also going to determine exactly how much vitamin D you produce. And with obesity, you find that it's more difficult for the body to convert the vitamin D, or to convert the sun into vitamin D for your body. So as you're getting smaller, that becomes less of a problem, but initially that can affect how much vitamin D your body makes. The guidelines, like I said, are now 3,000 units a day for all surgeries, and the last research I saw was showing 3,000 to 6,000. So that's just getting higher all the time. It is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you don't want to overdo it. You can take too much vitamin D, and that can be a problem also. So you want to have your labs drawn. You want to know what your vitamin D level is, and you want to take the appropriate or prescribed amount of vitamin D. Okay. Protein. I think we all know that protein comes from your dairy products, your cheeses. It comes from meats. It comes from eggs. It comes from fish. All of those are excellent sources of protein. And as we talk about in the classes before surgery, there's a lot of other sources, beans and some vegetable sources of protein. And it's vital for bone integrity because we're finding that a low protein really does have a detrimental effect on bone loss. So if you're not getting enough protein, you're not turning over, you're not storing and building reservoirs of the calcium. It appears to, and I say appears to because it's actually still being studied, but it seems to affect the calcium uptake in your small intestines. And it also increases those parathyroid hormone levels, which again then are going to help to dissolve bone. Now, Laura did a talk not long ago on protein, and she did remind us that you can take too much protein. It will cause you to lose weight, but it will also, if you overdo the protein, you will start excreting it through your kidneys. So don't try to eat more protein than you really need, because it's not gonna benefit you at all. Again, your dietary intake is decreased simply because you have less volume, but also there are people who have dairy intolerances, shellfish intolerances, fish intolerances, a lot of those kinds of issues that can make it more difficult to get in all your protein. So if you're not getting 60 grams, you do want to supplement with a protein shake. And if you find, there are a number of patients that complain about meat being one of the more difficult things for them to manage. And protein, and Laura was talking about that when she was talking about protein. And what you might find is very helpful is to tenderize or marinate or cook it in a slow cooker so that it doesn't, it breaks down some of those fibers that are in the protein, and that makes it easier for you to digest. Slow cookers are great. You can throw stuff in there and let it cook all day, and it's really just falls apart when you get home. So that helps a lot. But marinating it with any of your balsamic vinegars, lemon juice, etc., that also helps quite a bit. The way you keep your bones healthy, in addition to eating correctly, is you need to exercise, you need to take your supplements, and you need to get your routine lab testing done. We do it after surgery at 2 months, at 6 months, at 12 months, and then once a year. And so we want to always check your labs annually at least to make sure that you don't have any vitamin or calcium deficiencies. You want to avoid excessive alcohol because that also prevents the absorption, and smoking also is one of the things that prevents your bones from being healthy. Weight-bearing exercises are the best way to also help from the exercise standpoint. Jogging, playing tennis, going for a walk, anything that causes your bones to have some stress on them is good for your bones. And one thing that really is becoming more and more popular and is very helpful for bones is yoga. It does require you to move sometimes in very uncomfortable or difficult ways, but there's a lot of a moderation that you can do. You can modify a lot of those poses. Resistance training is also very good. Using resistance bands is a very cheap way to get a lot of good strengthening of your bones and your muscles because you're pulling against the bone, and that's what keeps it strong. You're putting tension on it even without just standing on it. You can do resistance bands sitting in a chair, and that will help keep your bones strong. You can put it under your feet and then do these kinds of things, or lift it over your head. There's a lot of resistance training that really will keep your bones strong. So this is just kind of reiterating what key nutrients you need of all of these things. So dairy, greens, sardines, and salmon are excellent sources. Legumes like peanuts, lentils, any of those kinds of things. Soy, nuts, seeds, and fortified foods. Those are all good ways to get your nutrition in. And then for supplementation, you need to have a reliable brand of bariatric vitamins, or you need to make sure that you're taking calcium citrate. Just read the bottle. You don't want to take more than 500 to 600 milligrams at a time because your body really can't assimilate any more than that. So you don't want to take 1,000 at once. You want to take it like 3 times a day, and you want to take it at 500 to 600 milligrams at a time. You also don't want to take it with iron. Yes?
So here's a silly question. If we're taking bariatric advantage and we're taking Citracal, is that a mistake?
No. Bariatric, are you taking the capsules, the Bariatric Advantage capsules?
The chewable?
The chewables? Okay. There is not calcium in those.
Okay.
That's why they sell those bags of calcium chews. So in addition to that vitamin, you need to also take the calcium. Some vitamins say that they contain all their calcium, and there's simply, and they also have iron in them, and you can't take the 2 of them at the same time. So you want to take those at least 2 hours apart. So if you take a vitamin first thing in the morning, say you take a vitamin with every meal, but you want to wait 2 hours and then take your calcium. Okay, take it in between your meals. Okay. If you're taking a vitamin that doesn't have iron in it, then you don't need to worry. It's okay. There's nothing else that interferes with the calcium, is there? Okay. Just checking with our dietitian there. Okay, so in summary, your bone health is very important after bariatric surgery, and it is going to be impacted by your lifestyle, whether you're active or inactive, your diet and nutrition, and your adherence to taking your vitamins. Okay? The important thing is that lifelong support and following up with your lab values is important to help avoid potential future bone injuries. And if you haven't had a bone density study, at least for a baseline, it's probably not a bad idea to get one. You don't need to do them frequently by any means. You can do them every other year or something like that, every three years, because it takes a while for that process to occur. But you do want to know what your baseline is. You want to know if you've got enough calcium circulating. You want to know if your bones are dense, and if you've lost any bone, any height. And you want to make sure that you get your labs checked at least once a year. Okay? Yeah.
Does your